Welcome to Rye Toast. I'm your host, Mike Levy. Today's slice of Rye Toast is a cautionary tale based on events that actually happened over 30 years ago. The title of this tale is The Hoxton Green Horror. It is not for the faint of heart or those prone to nightmares. So if you are squeamish or of a nervous disposition or sensitive to graphic descriptions of personal anguish, I will pause for 10 seconds to give you the opportunity to stop listening now. Still here? Congratulations, and thank you for your courage and fortitude. From this point on, you are proceeding at your own risk, and I cannot be responsible for the consequences. So let me set the stage. This is about the dark side of the book publishing business in the late 20th century. These events occurred before Amazon, before online book ordering, in fact, before online anything was even a thing, before home computers, tablets, and mobile phones, in the dark, dark pre-internet days. At that time, Hoxton Green was a mail-order publishing house specializing in professional and technical publications. And I was a young computer professional living quietly in Unionville, Ontario, with my wife Madeline, 2 teenage daughters, and an 8-year-old ginger cat called Whiskers. Now, Whiskers has nothing at all to do with this story, and thankfully neither do the kids. They went home on that fateful February evening, which is etched indelibly into my memory. A night on which I returned from work to find my wife crumpled on the hall floor, babbling incoherently. At first I was unable to comprehend anything she was saying, but after the administration of strong spirits, the glaze began to lift from her eyes, and she began to relate a tale so awful that I shudder to think of it even now. "It wasn't my fault," she croaked, as her eyes darted wildly around the room. "It was that book you ordered from Hoxton Green, the one we told them to bill to our American Express card. First they sent us an overdue notice, so I called them and reminded them that we had specified to charge it to our American Express card. They said they'd take care of it promptly, and I believed them." She turned that pitiful, tortured face to me and began to sob uncontrollably. "But they didn't. And when the second notice arrived, I phoned them again and asked them why they hadn't kept their promise, and they swore that this time they would take care of it for sure. I even wrote to them, but by then I should have realized we were doomed." She paused to fortify herself with another gulp of LCBO brandy. The hairs on the back of my neck began to rise as her voice faded to a whisper. "Creditel." I recoiled at the mention of the name. The fiends had unleashed Creditel, the much feared and loathed collection agency. "It came in the mail today." She motioned to a torn envelope and a crumpled red slip on which I could barely make out the words "reference number 936531" and "detrimental effect on your credit standing." It was this ominous communication which had plunged her into this mental and emotional abyss. But even in this pitiful state, she had managed to crawl to the phone in a final desperate effort to reason with the Hoxton Green accounts receivable ghouls. As fate would have it, the phone this time was answered by Colleen Brace, a young receptionist on her first day at work who had not yet taken the corporate customer desensitization training. Not knowing that she was exceeding the boundaries of her job description and breaking every sacred rule of the corporate culture, Colleen took on the task of averting this senseless tragedy. Now it was a race against time. Could Colleen save the day and my wife? Did she have the determination, the courage, the emotional strength to divert the cruel forces of the Creditel juggernaut? Well, the answer was not long in coming. 10 minutes later, Colleen had called back. It's all our fault. The girl's been sick, you know. Turns out we're up to our yin-yangs in unapplied American Express payments. We're really sorry. Boy, did we ever goof up. We have called off the dreaded forces of Creditel. Way to go, Colleen. But the ordeal was not quite over yet. One final confrontation remained. The telephone had rung shrilly, and summoning her last dregs of strength and courage, Madeline answered it, only to hear the blood-curdling voice of the dreaded Creditel itself. "Yes," it screeched, "you foiled me this time, but it won't be long before you or your husband buy another mail-order book, and then I will have you." His rasping, grotesque voice rose to a crescendo, and then the line went dead. As Madeline recounted the final moments of her torment with her limp body cradled in my arms, her face suddenly relaxed and returned to its normal serene beauty. She had prevailed over ignorance, incompetence, and yes, pure evil. But at what cost, I wondered. Now, all these years later, we rarely speak about that day. But I can still see the telltale signs, the momentary flash of alarm that darts across her face when her mobile phone rings, the reluctance to open her email on winter nights. And I curse the day I ever dropped that book mail order into a Canada Post mailbox and put my family at the mercy of the Hoxton Green Horror. And now for the story behind the story. First of all, I have to tell you these events actually did happen, although I have obviously exaggerated aspects for dramatic and hopefully humorous effect. Hoxton Green is not the real name of the publisher, but they did survive this serious customer service crisis and are today a billion-dollar-plus worldwide publisher of technical publications. It would be nice to believe that our savior Colleen remained unsullied by corporate indoctrination and went on to become a company leader and customer champion, retiring wealthy on the value of her stock options. But somehow I doubt it. My wife Madeline and our children are real people, although Whiskers the ginger cat later died for reasons unrelated to this incident. As far as I know, the American Express company was able to move on and suffered no permanent damage to its reputation or profitability. And as for the evil Creditel, well, the company was dissolved some years later. I like to think that my wife's brave stand started the rot that eventually caused their foul and fetid empire to crumble into the dust of eternity. But I've probably been watching too many Marvel movies. And now for the story behind the story behind the story. What you have heard actually started life as a complaint letter that I sent to the publisher. It was much more positive and fun to do it that way than to angrily recite a dry, humorless litany of the events, like many people do. It certainly got their attention and amused them, and they replied in the same vein with profuse apologies and a free book. One final irony, though, was that their apology letter was riddled with grammar, punctuation, and spelling errors. I guess their resident letter writer was also sick that day. Some years later, I adapted the letter into a speech which won a humorous speaking award at my Toastmasters Club. And now, several years later again, it's morphed into a slice of rye toast for your enjoyment. It's fun to reflect on how one apparently negative experience many years ago has actually generated so much positive energy over decades. That's all for today. Thanks for listening and joining me for Rye Toast. Until next time.